When you're doing something that you don't like or that you're not enthusiastic about, you're going to be seeking work-life balance because the work is not your life and your life is not your work, and you want to balance those two things. But if you get to a point where you can do something that you actually enjoy, do something that when you do it doesn't stress you out, doesn't make you feel like you're doing work, that actually is fun and keeps you curious, then why limit yourself and balance that? Welcome to the Bias for Action podcast with your host, Michael Fang. With a PhD in applied physics focusing on quantum computing and a number of years in long-distance running, I hope to give listeners a chance to go behind the scenes of high performers across a wide range of disciplines and perspectives. Uncovering the mindset and habits of those who strive to be the best will help you improve your life and accomplish your goals with actionable advice. Today on the show, we have a slightly different format. Instead of interviewing guests, I'm going to be interviewed by two individuals today, Victor Martinez and Jennifer Sunohara. Victor will be mainly asking the questions, but Jennifer may bump in every once in a while and say something. So this is totally new for me. I've never been interviewed before, so we'll see how this goes.
Just off the bat, you got a different title going around now over the last couple months. I think we're into months now. You're Dr. Michael Fang now. How cool is that? And what attracted you to physics to begin with? Did you always know you were going to go after your PhD?
So first off, I don't know if I'm used to the word doctor yet. I feel like because I work with other people that have PhDs, they just call me Michael. And if anything, they've had their PhDs for 10 years. So I'm like the little doctor of all the other bigger doctors. But in terms of physics, that goes way back to childhood. And I think what first got me into physics was not even reading, because I watched a lot of TV as a kid, just going on PBS Nova and watching all these like cool TV shows about how galaxies are colliding, find out like how I could build my own spaceship or launch asteroids into space. And so that led me down this whole like science exploration rabbit hole. And I went to the library, and I always remember going into the comic section and checking out Garfield, but I also stopped by the science section to read all the books about like the Milky Way, time travel, and all that sort of stuff. And I think I got to middle school and I just loved roller coasters a lot. And I always wanted to ride like the fastest, most badass roller coasters in the United States. I memorized all the stats for the craziest roller coasters in the United States. Like the tallest and fastest roller coaster in the United States is King Ka in New Jersey at Six Flags Great Adventure. It has top speed 128 miles per hour, and it's 456 feet tall. And I still remember that because in my childhood, I just love remembering those sorts of stats. And Jennifer's like cracking up right now.
My mind is blown.
But it made me realize like I really like if I could build one of those things, that would be awesome. Because I also played a ton of Roller Coaster Tycoon as a kid. And so I was like, what can I do for the rest of my life that allows me to ride and build roller coasters? So I wanted to be like a roller coaster architect. And I had my eyes set on like, how do I become a roller coaster architect? So I started like Googling as like a middle school kid, like what do you need to learn to design roller coasters? And number one on the list was like physics. You got to know physics. And I'm like, all right, I know what I need to do. I got to learn physics. So
are you still a big roller coaster fan?
Not really. I think the last time I rode a roller coaster, I got like either motion sick or just like I wanted to throw up a bit, and I felt like, man, I'm getting too old for this. So no, not anymore.
Did you have like a favorite that you would get on, or Six Flags or wherever?
Oh yeah, Six Flags Magic Mountain was like my mecca. Like going there would be like a pilgrimage because it had the craziest roller coasters in California.
Well, we had Six Flags and Great America. So what about Great America? Did you ever go there?
Yeah, I went to Great America a lot as a kid. We used to, every year in June, for a middle school end of the year field trip, we'd go to Great America. And it was like the best time of the year because I could go on all the rides.
Well, so I guess knowing that you got into physics for really fun reasons, I also know that just from talking, about running and kind of off on trails, it hasn't always been as like you got into running from what I understood almost to get away and to kind of find like a different, just to get away from everything and kind of like the peacefulness of physics and the work and everything. So what made you choose running? And then I guess also what made you choose ultras to begin with? Because the last time I counted 6 ultras by the age of 23 or when you were 23. It's like, what were you thinking?
Yeah, I probably wasn't thinking, but the whole thing with running, as I've told a bunch of people, is I was super excited to start graduate school at Caltech because Caltech, is kind of a big name, blah, 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 blah. And I kind of fell into that trap of like, oh, in order to succeed at Caltech, I need to work my ass off. And so when I first got to Caltech, the first thing I did on my very first day, 2 weeks after my graduation, was I worked a 14-hour day in the lab. And I was like, well, I guess this is my new normal. So for the next who knows how long, I was just spending long hours in the lab and not doing anything else with my life. And at some point, I just burnt out. I mean, it even went as far as I got recognition from my advisor, and he noticed that I was, working above and beyond even for a first-year graduate student. Because most first-year graduate students, when they enter Caltech, what do? They take classes and focus on their classes. I was taking all the classes and spending at least 8-9 hours in the lab on top of that. So I was extremely productive as a first-year graduate student, and I had no work-life balance. I know now that work-life synergy is better, but I'll get to that later. And yeah, I also went through a breakup, so that didn't help. And I did what every guy does after a breakup. You hit the gym, right? So I hit the gym, and I realized like I was getting too big and my clothes weren't fitting, and I couldn't get any bigger because I guess I'm not very good at lifting weights.
Wait,
so,
like muscular bigger or like building fat bigger?
Just like muscular. I couldn't build any more muscle. And then if I did, then I have to resize my pants and my clothes, and I didn't want to buy new clothes. So and then I had to I learned about like eating and dieting. I'm like, I don't want to do all that. It's like, so I was like, I'm just gonna do something else. And then right next to the weight room was a set of treadmills. I was like, yeah, I grew up doing cardio. I grew up swimming a bit, did some marching band. It's like very weak cardio, but it's some cardio. I was like, I can run. And so, yeah, I just started running on the treadmill. And like every novice runner on the treadmill, you always want to show off how fast you can run on the treadmill compared to the person next to you. And so I was just bumping up my speed. I'm like, all right, let's see how fast I can hold like 10. I didn't know what 10 meant, 10 miles per hour. Eventually figured it out, but I'm like, 10 seems like a pretty hard number. I'll just try to sustain that. And when I put 2 and 2 together, like, hey, 10 miles per hour on the treadmill means 6-minute pace. I'm like, shit. I always wanted to break that goal as a middle school kid because I was this really fat, chubby kid in elementary school, ran 13:40 in the mile.
13:45 from what I remember.
Okay. Is that posted anywhere?
I did my research.
Okay. I didn't even
contacted your coach or your teacher back then.
Okay. But yeah, I was really not into running as a kid. And when I started swimming in middle school, which helped obviously my cardio, it also brought my mile time down. And I ran a 6:40 mile in 8th grade. So in 3 years, I dropped that time by like 2. And I always wanted to break 6 minutes in the mile because all the faster kids would break 6 minutes in the mile. I wanted to just be like them. But that never happened. So, yeah, I was in grad school. I'm like, well, I was a 13-year-old. I'm like 21 now. I can probably beat that. And so I spent a month working on it. And eventually I ran 6 minutes for 10 miles per hour on the treadmill. And then I, as a physicist, I'm like, wait, 10 miles per hour on the treadmill probably doesn't mean actually running 6-minute pace. So I was like, I should probably do this on the track. did this on a track and ran like a 6:15. I'm like, oh man, I still have some work to do. But I eventually got there. I got to 6-minute pace. And I was like, well, like that wasn't so bad. It only took me a month to get here. There's got to be harder things than just running faster. So I was like, I should probably run longer or something. And so Caltech had like a 5K, which wasn't really a 5K. It was like a 2.8 mile route with like as many imaginable hairpin turns as you can possibly imagine. There's like no way you can run fast on that course. But I still got third overall. And I was like, okay, that's pretty good. And I also decided to sign up for a 5K on the same day as the Caltech 5K, which was the Color Run 5K.
Oh, yeah.
So I ran my first 5K, quote unquote, at Caltech that morning, and then recovered a bit, drove to Dodger Stadium to run my Color Run 5K, and being, I don't know, thinking that the Color Run was going to be this amazing experience, I put my cell phone in like a little plastic bag and wanted to record my whole run while being, thrown at. And it was just such a stupid idea.
You mean throwing colors at you, right?
Yeah, because I thought like, wow, the promo videos make it look so cool. I better record this. But it turns out there were only like 4 color stations spaced out over the 5K. So you're like, most of the time you're just running in the empty Dodger Stadium parking lot, and then you come to these little color stations and they throw stuff at you, and then you realize like I can't breathe because it's in my mouth. But
there's a review for the Color Run, by the way.
but yeah, that was my second 5K, and then I think I did pretty well. I don't know what I placed at. I just remember these kids would like run past me, not pacing themselves whatsoever. I'm thinking in my head, like, I got to beat these kids, even though it wasn't a competitive run at all.
So how soon after that did you sign up for an ultra? Because that's what I thought you did first.
Yeah. So,
or were there like other races in between before the ultra?
I'm pretty sure I signed up for the ultra, 2 to 2.5 months before. So that was the Bulldog 50K, and that was the end of August. And I probably signed up mid-June to early July. And by mid-June, I had run my first trail race, 5K trail race, and I also had run my first 10K. And so that's when I decided I should run a 50K. Gotcha. And I was like, well, 50K is probably something I can manage, because I was like, I went from running 8 miles one day to running 15 miles one day. And I'm so like, okay, if I can double like 8 to 15, I can double from 15 to 30. It's like, what's the problem with that? So I was like, yeah, I can do a 50K. I didn't notice the elevation though at first. So I signed up for Bulldog, and then they had a preview run. It was like July 2nd, right before 4th of July, they had a preview run of the Bulldog course, just one loop, right? I was like, yeah, 14 miles. I've done 15 miles. I can do that. I was like, wait, there's a big mountain here. And I didn't know what I was doing at all. I had like a giant hat, because I was like, oh, it's gonna be sunny. I'm gonna be out there for a while maybe. So I had this big like 4-foot diameter hat, a black hat.
It wasn't the solid one.
Do we have pictures of this?
I just remember it was made by Outlier, a company in New York.
Do you still have the hat?
No, I got rid of it, because who needs a 4-foot hat?
Someone needs that.
And it was heavy too, but I had the hat in my running pack, so I actually got a running pack, and then I ran with some people that to this day I still follow on Strava, and then I actually dropped them on the hill. Because I didn't pace myself. And then when I got to the top, it got really, really hot. I didn't bring enough water. So I was like, well, I guess I can wear this hat and it'll protect me. And then I ran with it. And every 10 feet, because of the coastal winds, it would just blow the brim over. And I was just like holding my hat with one hand while running. And then people just knew me as the guy with a big hat. And then that's when I actually met Kwa, who was involved with Run With Us for the very first time. And Kwa, I know you two both know, but I didn't know him at the time when I first talked to Kwa, and he was asking me about like what kind of runner I was, what distance I run. I just kind of told him I was new to running, and he was telling me how he's run all these 50Ks, these 100Ks. I'm like, man, this guy is a pro. Like, I wish I can be like him one day. So that's just how new I was to the whole running world. And yeah, that's eventually when I started training really hard. And so like this timeline is super accelerated. Like I started from not running at all in February of, I think it was 2016. And then in May, ran my first 2 5Ks. And then in June, ran my first trail race and 10K. July, ran the 4th of July 5K in Redondo Beach for the first time. And then got my stress fracture by the end of the month. So
Good.
that all happened really, really fast. And I got my stress fracture mid-July, which was 6 weeks out from Bulldog 50K. Took 5 weeks off, and then ran 4 miles the week before Bulldog, had a rest day, ran 8 miles, had another rest day, ran 18 miles, had another rest day, and then I thought, okay, I'm good to go. And then I ran the Bulldog 50K.
So that was like your mentality going in with the injury like that, because that was one of my questions. Like having to deal with a setback so early on in your like running journey, that like a lot of people would either probably just stop or not really know how to handle it and just kind of,
Yeah, I think getting through that injury was a lot easier because I was so young into my running career. It's like growing up, right? When you're only 3 to 4 months into running for that long of a time seems like a long time to be running, especially when you're just getting started and you're making a lot of big gains in the beginning. And when I got injured, being out for 6 weeks felt like, I guess, it was almost half my running career basically. And the thing that kept me going was, well, I didn't get that far in the first place. I can probably get back to it pretty soon. It wasn't this, I didn't build up to this huge moment. Like I'm sure a lot of athletes do, they reach their peak fitness after 2 to 3 years of solid training. Whereas I was just like, I didn't have much to lose. Yeah.
That's a good way of looking at it. So we covered on what got you into physics, and we covered in what got you into running. But you mentioned something about like hard work and how you started, at Cal State,
Caltech.
Cal State.
They're the same thing, right?
Más o menos. But one of the things I had written down, and I think I remember reading your blog on the Hoka site, talking about moderation. But it's like it's a thin line you have to walk to reach success, right? Like you hear, certain athletes or certain like entrepreneurs and certain like business people, and everybody has like a different perspective. Like some say moderation and balance are overrated, and that you need a singular focus to be great at something. And then on the other hand, how long can that last before you burn out? So taking all of your running and then all of your experiences and the journey to your PhD into consideration, how do you feel now about balance and moderation? Like, how do you approach that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because to most people, if you look at my life as it is, I wouldn't have any balance between work and life. It's every waking moment, I'm either thinking about doing work or doing the work itself. And during my PhD, that was hard. It was hard to work a lot because I wasn't doing what I liked. When you're doing something that you don't like or that you're not enthusiastic about, you're going to be seeking work-life balance because the work is not your life and your life is not your work, and you want to balance those two things. But if you get to a point where you can do something that you actually enjoy, do something that when you do it doesn't stress you out, doesn't make you feel like you're doing work, that actually is fun and keeps you curious, then why limit yourself and balance that? Why not let it consume you? And I'm sure, just doing projects that you love, you worked your ass off on those things and it probably didn't even feel like any work. And that's this whole thing about work-life synergy, where as long as you know what you want to do and express that to whoever is giving you that responsibility. So if you're working at a job, you need to be able to communicate to your manager that this is what you love doing. And if you are allowed to work on what you love doing, you can produce much more, meaningful output. You can work a lot harder and you will be just less stressed and be a better contributor. So I think a lot of people are stuck in this mindset of thinking about, how do I get out of work at the end of the day? How do I get over this project so I can, enjoy my weekends? I can't wait till it's Friday. I hear that a lot. And that was me during my PhD because I didn't enjoy what I was doing. And that's my own fault because my advisor actually gave me the option to choose my own project. I just chose a project that was really fucking hard. and I got myself into that hole and it was a grind fest. So that was my own fault. But, now that I'm in this new job, doing something that's not as much of a grind fest, doing things that are more interesting, talking to a lot more people, looking at the project as a whole, is just something that I would be thinking about anyway. So these days, I'm probably working much more than I would during my PhD, probably almost twice as much more, but I'm less stressed. I'm able to get all my runs in not to the full degree that I used to, but to most of the way there without ever feeling stressed out. And I think that's key.
And so going from there, back to your running, so we touched on your 100 milers. You signed up for AC 100 while you were injured. And I believe you hadn't even run past 30 miles at the time of signing up from my investigative research. So what were you thinking with going with the 100 miler? And in my notes, I always put LOL after, what were you thinking? Because I have this several times. And more importantly, you made a huge decision knowing you weren't ready yet. So in life, we have to do that as well, right? Sometimes you feel like you're not ready. And so any advice on how you approached signing up and going after something that you knew you weren't ready for? And I guess how that relates to life, or if there's any parallel between that and your professional goals.
Yeah, I gotta be honest with you. Signing up for that 100 miler was not the smartest thing to do. It was motivated by pure desire. I knew exactly what caused me to sign up for AC 100, and that was Billy Yang's at UTMB promotion video. And I was just watching that video and awestruck. I'm like, I want to run in something like that for something that long. Because there was this portion in the video where he was showing how all the runners were going through the aid station. It was like nighttime. It was pitch dark in the middle of the night. They had their headlamps out. And then you can see in the background in the mountainscape, these row of headlamps, in the background. And you can see all the runners out there in the mountain. I was like, that is something I need in my life right now. Because I was spending all day in my lab. And I was just like, that would be epic, just going on that sort of adventure. And Billy Yang's video combined with my injury, not combined with my injury, because I was injured, I couldn't do anything involved with running unless it was volunteering at an aid station. So I was injured. I was still looking up a lot about running, learning more about trail running, and I came across this little thing called, the Angeles Crest 100. I was like, oh, it's right here in my backyard. That's pretty cool. When is it? It's like, oh, it's happening in 2 weeks. So I was like, maybe I should check it out. And so I emailed the race director, Ken, and asked if they needed any extra volunteers, and it turns out they did. So yeah, a couple weeks later, I was at mile, I think it was 34 at 3 points, aid station. And I didn't do much. I was just telling runners to run one way because the aid station's that way. But I saw from the fastest runner to the slowest runner, what they were going through. And obviously the faster runners looked a little fresher, but I saw people of all different characters, like people, if you just looked from off the street, that they wouldn't be, that sort of runner. And I was like, man, if they can do it, like, and there are people in their like 70s and 80s doing it too. And I was like thinking, like, if they can do it, why can't I do it in a year? Like, I'm injured now, but if their old bodies, like, not to insult, elderly people, but their old bodies can get them through this, like, what is this little step back going to stop me from doing it? And I wasn't, I was so new to running. I wasn't even thinking about competition at that point, because I was like, I'm not even the fastest person out there, obviously. So all I wanted to do was, like, I just want to be out there and see what it's like to push my body through that. Because I was only at mile 34, but you can still see a decent amount of damage at mile 34. And I saw that damage, and people were dropping out because, I don't know, they're cramping up, or they just simply didn't make the cutoff. But I was like, man, people are willing to do this, and I want to see what that's like.
That's really cool. The whole lights thing, that was probably my favorite part from going out there and pacing, and that, like, just seeing it at night. I just think that it's one of the coolest things that you just think of something nobody will ever really see, that unless they're in that environment, you can't get that anywhere else. It's a pretty cool sight. So then you end up signed up for not just that 100-miler, but you felt that you needed to prep for the 100-miler. So you signed up for another 100-miler a couple of months before that one. So again, I had, what were you thinking? You also ended up signed up for a 200-miler. But thanks to the advice from your coach, you didn't do it. But my question with that whole timeline of doing 200-milers a couple months apart from each other, and then the 200-miler, is what advice would you have for somebody in terms of reevaluating goals? Because there's obviously, a little reevaluating that had to go on, there, because, it's great to think big and, just go all out and jump all in. But at some point you have to, like, stop and just think, like, okay, wait, like, what have I done? Where am I? And what do I need to change?
Right. So I've been thinking about that a little bit, and I think it has a lot to do with just being calibrated. And that can be a good thing and a bad thing, depending how you use it. Being calibrated is a good thing because it prevents you from getting injuries. It knows, what your limits are based on your past experiences. But at the same time, it can be limiting, because if you think you know what your limits are, then that could be what's stopping you from doing what is actually possible. So being new to running, I was extremely uncalibrated. So I thought, like, why not? Why can't I do it? What's stopping me from doing it? And I've, when I signed up for AC, I've never done a 50K. Even when I signed up for San Diego, I did a 50-miler. And when I did that 50-miler, it took me like 13 hours because it was a Twin Peaks 50, and it was like a hard 50. But it was a positive experience that gave me confidence to say, yeah, like, why can't I? There's nothing stopping me. And so I signed up for San Diego for two reasons. Yes, it was in preparation for AC 100, because I knew AC 100 was going to be a harder 100, but also Kwa convinced me to sign up for it because he was running it too. And then he was just like, yeah, come on, it'll be fun, and we can go out and run together. You don't have to run it very hard. I'm like, yeah, I'll probably take like San Diego kind of chill, like make it like my fun 100, and then do AC 100 and really try to do well in that one. But obviously, you know how these things go. I ran, San Diego 100 I ran with Kwa for probably the first 8 miles, and being the young, impatient runner I was, I'm like, man, this is too slow. I want to run faster. So I went from like 12-minute pace to like 9-minute pace, and I kind of dropped him, and I felt bad about it. But I was just like, it's getting hotter. I just want to run faster. I just want to see this course faster. And then I was also aiming for sub 24. So so there was that. But I was, when you have a plan, which I did, you kind of notice that, oh, I'm doing very well. And so I had a split chart made to see what splits I would need to hit to make it sub 24 at San Diego. And I was like an hour and a half under my splits. And I was thinking like, man, I'm going to do great. And you know what happens when you're way under your splits. Not too far later, I blew up pretty bad. And so I think I blew up at like mile 30 classic.
Oh,
Not like a hard blow up. It was like a soft blow where just like things kind of like all the energy just kind of fell. And I just felt like I had no energy. And then I felt like that until mile 65 or something. And that energy picked back up. Well, I should back up and say it was definitely my fun 100, even though I was aiming for sub 24, because I remember getting messages on my cell phone and texting people during that 100 because, well, it was like out in Lake Cuyamaca and I didn't have Verizon. I think only Verizon people got service out there, but I didn't get service out there.
Yeah, that was terrible.
I got service.
Are you Verizon?
I'm Verizon.
Okay. But I didn't have service all day out there. And then all of a sudden my cell phone goes off. I'm like, oh, I have service now. So I whipped out my phone and started replying to people on my phone. And I was like trying to figure out where I was. Apparently I was close to the Mexican border because I got a little message. It's like, welcome to Mexico. Like roaming charges may apply. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm probably pretty close to the turnaround point. But I was clearly distracted and my mind wasn't really in it until I got to the turnaround point. This is the southernmost point of the race at mile 65. And then I calculated the time that I would need in terms of hours to get under sub 24. I thought I only have to run, I think it was 12:30 pace from where I was to get sub 24. And I was like, oh shit. I need to get my ass moving if I want the sub 24, because it was like this 2,000 foot downhill run that I just casually like walked because I was like replying to texts on this downhill. And then it wasn't until the bottom that I was like, okay, I can actually make this sub 24. So I hauled ass from 65 to 85. And when I mean hauled ass, it was like just hard from a cardio perspective. At that point, my feet were dead anyway, so I didn't know the difference between running fast or running slow. But then the wind started picking up in the middle of the night, and it was a headwind. So like even though you were running really hard, you were being pushed back or sideways. And I was just looking at my watch and I was watching the time tick away. I'm like, now I need to run 11 minutes per mile to make it to make it to sub 24, and then it became 10 minutes per mile to make sub 24. And then when I got to the mile 85 station, I just gave up. Or like it was right outside the mile 85 aid station. I just gave up and I walked in. And I think because I was like running so hard to make that sub 24, I was generating enough heat to keep my body warm. And in classic fashion, I didn't prepare enough clothing for the case where I wouldn't be producing enough heat. So when I slowed down, I got a little bit of hypothermia and I had to stay at the aid station and drink a lot of soup. And so I kind of walked in my last 15 miles and that's how I got my like almost 26-hour finish, because I was pretty close.
Well, I know we wanted to get to other aid stations to see, because you guys, I don't know if Jen knew who you were at the time. I kind of knew you a little bit. And so I just kept telling her like, oh, like, let's get out there and cheer. And then I remember when we saw you come through and then you just kind of like disappeared. And then I told Jen, I'm like, wait, like I didn't see a pacer with him. Like, is he here by himself? I was like, how the heck? Because then we started hearing all these stories about how windy it was and how crazy the nighttime was and all that. And I was like, did he just do that all by himself? So that was probably the first time we were just like wowed by you, and it was pretty cool seeing it. And then we saw Quad. He was like, he had his pacer and he was all like having fun. But yeah, that was pretty cool, being able to just kind of see the process of, I'm like, wait, this guy just did that. And that's when you were rocking all the Solomon gear.
Yeah.
remember you were in a really thin Solomon jacket. So yeah, apparently you haven't learned your lesson about the hypothermia.
No, I have
a couple
not.
years later.
I always expect myself to be running fast, but that never happens.
Oh man. So one of the, I guess, a little break off question then is, you do have a coach. So I'm sure he probably doesn't give you gear advice, but coaching advice. I was gonna say, how does that help you, or what do you like? How do you feel about having a coach? Because like me personally, I just ask Jen, oh hey, like, what do you think of this, or do you think I should do this, or I pick your brain, and but it's a very different, I guess, feel. Or some people wonder, like, would it help having a coach? Do you feel that helps you? And then what would you say some of the negatives are, of having a coach?
Yeah, I think David has always been an interesting coach. Not only because he coaches 200 plus athletes.
David Roach, right?
David Roach, but he also has a very interesting philosophy on life. So when you work with David, he cares like 20% about running and 80% about life. So he doesn't care what pace you run at that day. He cares that you're happy about your running and that you're balanced in life and properly motivated. So whenever I talk with David about accomplishing a goal, or just the goals that I originally had, which was running 2 100s and a 200, one of the first questions he asked me was, what are you trying to accomplish? And I didn't have a good answer except, just to push myself and see what I can do. And he's like, well, you have the rest of your life to do that. Why do you need to do all these things in one summer? So that's what made me recalibrate myself and realize I didn't need to do that 200. I probably won't do 200 for a while.
Does it help you not stress out about, all right, what do I have to do, I guess, on Tuesday, or what do I have to do then? Because then on the flip side, I'm always thinking, if you were on Jen's birthday, and then Miles, our buddy's like, oh, tag along for the run. And I'm thinking, this is why I've always kind of shied away from the coach thing. It's like, man, well, it's not in my schedule that day, so I can't do it. How do you approach that? Like on days where you're going to end up doing more, or some days where you're just not feeling it and you don't do that. Like, is that okay? Is there wiggle room?
I think any good relationship between an athlete and a coach involves a lot of communication, because at the end of the day, from working with David, and I'm sure talking with a lot of other coaches, the coaches aren't there to control you. They're there to look out for what's best for you. So if you do a group run that you like to do, every Monday night, then they can schedule that in. Just communicate to your coach, like, hey, I really enjoy doing this weekend with my friends. And every time I've communicated that to David, he's like, great, go have fun. But just be aware, like, this won't, play to your full advantage in your overall training cycle. And as long as you can accept that, then great, do what you love to do. And in terms of having a scheduled workout every week, there is, like, I've worked with David for I've worked with David for 3 years now. So after 3 years, I've noticed that there's a certain structure that complements all the workouts and long runs he gives me. For example, my rest days are on Monday. I do, moderately long, easy run on Tuesday, which warms me up for a workout on Wednesday. And then it's just another easy run on Thursday to recover. And then a short, easy run on Friday to recover from the DOMs on Wednesday, and also to take it chill for the long run on Saturday. Do my long run on Saturday, and then use super compensation and still get a decent run in on Sunday, and fully rest on Monday, because you're just total DOMs from Saturday. So
how did you explain super compensation for somebody that?
Yeah, I'm not even that familiar with super compensation. The only reason why I know of it because Jennifer mentioned it one day, and I was like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. I guess there's some, extra performance enhancing effect that happens after a really hard workout or hard session, and your body recovers and almost overcompensates for that, and you actually, I guess, gain fitness for an additional day before you fully deal with the consequences of that workout the day after.
All right. Well, I was completely lost. That's why I asked that question. Because I was like, wait, what? I haven't heard of this. But I think it's cool to just to hear kind of the way you lay out a week or he lays out the week for you. And then all the different, there's so many different ways to approach the same goal. Like I remember asking you, like, why does he have you do, why do you do your workout on Saturday and then you go do the easy run on tired legs on Sunday, where she's showing me a chart on supercompensation, like I'm gonna understand it, but where I'm the opposite, right? Where I want to tire my legs out on the Saturday, and then on the Sunday I want to really go nail the workout on tired legs, or not even nail it. I mean, I fail it like probably 70% of the time, but I just think it's interesting that, there's so many different ways to achieve success in a training plan. I think some people always think like, oh, I need to do this day, or I need to get that done. Where it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be that way. There's different routes you can take to achieve, a successful, program, I guess.
Yeah. And I've encountered enough professionals in my life that I know to always sort of humble myself. I'm like totally aware of how much research David has done along with his wife Megan, because his wife is a doctor, and their life is about like performance, and running, and whatever he knows about running from a science perspective, I can trust. And he's also read a lot of running books. So he studied like Canova, Macmillan. He studied all the different running methodologies. So when he gives me a training plan, I have some bit of confidence that it's backed by his studies. And given that I don't have the time to do that study, it's like, well, if I were to write myself a training plan based on what I knew at the time, which was nothing, it's like, well, he knows more than me. So I'm perfectly fine with someone more knowledgeable than me giving me that prescription. And I used to be the same way with stocks. Like I used to buy and sell stocks thinking like, oh yeah, I could do way better than those like professionals. And I learned like, yeah, no, I can't. So now I don't even buy and sell my own stocks. So I let someone else take care of it.
Well, Jen yesterday decided that she might not try to make cookies anymore and just continue buying the Trader Joe's cookies.
Yeah,
because she's like, I can't make them better than them. Yep. So we just keep
it's less time consuming.
Yep.
It's easier, and then they're done. That's it.
Yeah, probably almost the same cost.
Más o menos.
Okay.
And
I did think about that though, breaking down the cost of what it would be per cookie.
Yeah.
Well, so you obviously you work really hard, and you're very dedicated, but at the same time, you've had a couple bumps on the road, right? So I don't know if looking at your ultra sign up, there was a DNF like a month after your first 50 miler, and I was like, did he seriously try to run another 50 miler after that? And then we had like cramping at CIM, rough day at LA, and then you had hypothermia again at We2 Cool. So I always talk about failure, and I'm like, I obsess about failure just because I think it like receives a negative connotation. There's so much you could learn from it. But the way you approach not having a great day, I've personally loved seeing, because I think that, the way we approach running is more about the long-term kind of process. But what advice or just your, maybe not even advice, but just your overall opinion on, being process driven versus results driven, and then how that can, I don't know, maybe change your mindset when it comes to things. Maybe not even about running. Maybe you just approach that to life. Like I find myself doing more and more of that in life, just thinking, all right, like just focus on the process. But you obviously have that approach in life and in running. So yeah, what do you think about how that affects you?
When I started running, I was all about results I was results driven, and I think I have largely David to thank for moving to this process driven mindset. And I also kind of just grew up at some point and realized that it's not about the short term; it's about the long term. Uh, and and yeah, I think I've heard this so many different times in so many different areas that the overall message that I get from people in all sorts of different fields of all sorts of different mindsets and experiences is that it's okay to fail. Because if you fail, then you learn something. If you don't fail or you don't try, then you never know. And it's all about, this iterative process of either improving yourself or figuring out what's best for you. And when someone says they're afraid to fail, I don't really see that as a good thing, because it means they're not afraid to try new things. And ultimately, if you want to better yourself, you got to learn something new. And if you're going to learn anything new, you're going to learn the most from failing, because it hurts. So I have no problem with failing, because I know it's going to be a learning experience. And I know that when I fail, I need to keep a positive mindset and realize, like, this is not the end of the world. Some people fail and they don't want to think about it. And I don't think that's the right thing to do either. I think when you fail, you need to think about it a lot and think about why you failed, and think about how you can do better next time, and maybe even how you didn't prepare yourself for whatever failures you set out to do. But yeah, I think failure is almost essential for success. People who are successful have failed, hundreds of times before that, right? And it's only because of doing something and failing that they ultimately are successful. And if people who have success for the first time won't be successful again, it's not a formula. I think you can make a formula that works for yourself and make yourself successful, but it's not a formula that you can apply to everyone and anyone. And so you have to figure out what that formula is for yourself, and that takes a lot of trial.
Yeah, no, well said. I remember somebody told me once, success you can't replicate is just called luck. So you have to be able to find your way back to it. But I think a lot of that comes from failure.
Yeah.
So that is a wrap with most of my questions. I did have a pre-quickfire question that I wanted. Actually, I had a couple of quicker, lighter questions since we've been curious about some of your racing strategies. So I just had two things written down. What's your fueling strategy during a race? Because I haven't seen a consistent one. Like, if somebody asks me, I'll tell them at the first 5K, I start fueling, and then every other, I know what I'm gonna want to do. I tell Jen, I'm gonna need this, and I'm gonna need this. But what's your fueling strategy during a race? And then, do you get nervous? Because also, I always think nerves are a great way, to kind of, it shows you all right, man, it's go time, because then, what separates a race from any other day. But those are two kind of more lighthearted questions. What's your fueling strategy, and do you get nervous? And that's just to prep you for your pre-quickfire question.
Okay. Yeah, my fueling strategy has been all over the place, because what I thought was not good enough was probably actually pretty good. And whenever I've tried to change my fueling strategy, which I'll get to in a bit, it always seems to backfire and not work well. So I should probably just stick to what works.
No caffeine.
Don't double the caffeine.
With the whole caffeine thing, that was having a tall cup of coffee before the race, and then taking more caffeinated gels. I think the Martin caffeinated gels have 100 milligrams in them.
I think so.
I think so.
Which is a lot.
We should also side note though that Michael doesn't drink coffee
Yeah,
on a
you
regular
stopped drinking.
basis, and he only drinks it on race days.
So now
doubled his.
I'm back to drinking coffee every day now.
Okay.
So that hopefully won't be a problem anymore. But 100 milligrams of caffeine is a lot.
Yeah.
And all the other gels I've taken in the past are 25 milligrams of caffeine. The goo ones are usually 25. So I've had a bunch of those with no problems. So I think it's the double whammy of like the 250 milligrams in the coffee itself, plus the extra 100 milligrams in the gel that just made me cramp up real bad. And it was a half marathon, Long Beach half marathon, and I felt cramping at like mile 5. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? So I wasn't even tired, but I felt cramping. I'm like, okay, well, I guess there goes my race.
Yeah. It was like 3 of us that bombed that day. And do you get nervous at all, or what's kind of your mindset?
Yeah, it's weird. The more I've noticed that the more nervous I feel, the better I do at the races. And I can't answer for sure where the nerves, actually maybe I can. I'll get to my nerves in a second. I think being nervous helps with adrenaline and getting me in a state where actually I can perform well. If I don't have the nerves, then I'm kind of more mellow and I don't really feel that like extra rush or kick during my races. So maybe that's why I do better when I'm more nervous. But I think I'm more nervous when I have a lot of training put into that race. Because, whenever I have a really good training block, there's a lot of like momentum there. There's a lot of excitement there. And I do get nervous when I have a really good training block and I want to execute well because of that training. And I've had races that I've gone into. Yeah, like Long Beach, where I came back from an injury. I wasn't expecting much. I didn't really feel nervous on that start line. I was like, let's just have fun. And I remember you were asking me what pace I was going to run at the race. And you seemed really excited. But I was just like, I don't know. Because I probably wasn't that excited.
So for the pre-quick fire question, you pretty much stole the whole 5th grade. I did some big time research on this, and I was gonna ask, what would you tell 5th grade you that finished? You didn't only run a 13:45, but you also finished last in that. From what the article I read. That you finished last in your mile test with the time of 13:45. But is there anything you wish you could go back and just kind of tell mini Michael Fang?
Honestly, I don't think I could tell anything to 5th grade me to make him listen, because I didn't do well in that test because I didn't give a shit about that test, and I didn't listen to anyone as a 5th grader. So you probably have to like wait a few more years for my brain to develop a bit more and actually listen to advice.
What is that whole?
Developmental psychology.
Yeah.
Your prefrontal cortex hasn't developed yet.
Right.
You make dumb decisions.
Oh
Essentially.
yeah, I flipped off like a teacher in 4th grade. So.
He feels bad about it now. Awesome. All right. So here's the quick fire round that we got for you. Pizza or burrito?
Burrito.
Biggest pet peeve?
Stopping your watch in the middle of your workout.
Oof. That one hurts.
That's terrible.
So maybe not so much quick. If you could have the perfect race, what distance would it be and where?
I think it would have to be Ventura half on the very same course. Ooh. That was a fun course.
Okay. All right. If you could have one superpower, what would that one be?
Infinite VO2 max.
Dang. That's well played.
I was like, invisible, flying.
Well played, sir.
It would be science related.
Oh man, I would never guess that one. If you were taking a trip tomorrow and could only pack one pair of shoes, what would they be?
Ooh, Hupanas.
Oof.
From
I wasn't
Hoko.
expecting that one.
Yep.
That one either.
They need to make more shoes of this.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No, that's pretty standard. He wears his Hupanas like all the time.
Yeah. And just to keep it continuous from what I think you asked Miles this and me this, work hard or play hard?
Work hard.
Dang, that's you and Miles answered that one. Well, that's when Miles told me, I was like, I said play hard. But yeah, that's everything I got.